then I will call this meeting to order. Joe, please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, all. Thank you for coming. Our first item on our agenda is our opportunity for public comment, and we do have someone signed up to deliver comment to the board this evening. Ms. Sear, if you wouldn't mind standing at the microphone and start by saying your name and town. Thank you.
Hi there, my name is Jessica Sear. I live at 37 Academy Street in South Berwick. I have 3 children here within the Marshwood School District. I am here tonight to just chat a little bit about what it looks like as far as the town budget is concerned when we are working through our budget process, and we understand that we have a relationship with you all and that it is a dance, and that 66.5% of our municipal budget does go to the school district. We want to be good stewards of our public funding, and knowing that, we just want to make sure that when you're going through your budget process that we are not hit with large amounts at the end of the day, and that we're transparent and really cooperative as within two bodies. So I just wanted to come here tonight and thank you for all of your work, open doors of communication, and to understand that when times are tough and everybody needs to kind of dig into their pockets and there's nothing left in the pockets, there are people within municipal governments that are taking these phone calls and fielding these emails. I know you probably received it, but over the weekend I had 10 emails because of the tax bills coming to me. So I thank you all for this opportunity and have a great meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Much appreciated.
Thank you, Jessica.
Okay. Next on the agenda is the report of the secretary. Can I have a motion, please, to approve the minutes of our last regular meeting on July 20th?
I move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of Wednesday, July 20th, 2022.
A second, Jen.
Jen,
I
thank you.
had found just a couple of typos. I don't know if they matter or not, but in the first paragraph on the 5th line down, his focus is on the importance of communication, engaging families, and also letting students know.
Yes, yeah, I see it. This
And then-
is under the report of the superintendent, the first item?
Yeah. And then on the third to the last sentence, halfway over, creating a respectful and supportive learning environment for all.
Yes. Creating rather than create.
And then in the second paragraph under item 2, Mr. Cavalier reported that the August meeting will provide the summer academic work instead of 4.
Sorry,
Mr. Cavalier reported, it says for the August meeting will provide. Maybe just change it to that. Just reads weird. Yeah.
Okay.
And then I had a few under 4 as well.
Under 4?
Under the item 4.
Yeah.
The first sentence, Mr. Cavalier reported there are 2 types of water testing. Maybe there are 2 types of water testing.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the second sentence, the statewide lead testing that has gotten pushed back, the state testing that has now been extended. Maybe just something between back and the statewide lead testing that has gotten pushed back and the state testing that has now been extended. Or comma. These are the 2 types of water testing.
Yeah, I think that second, the state testing phrase is not necessary, right? The state lead testing that had gotten pushed back
Yeah.
has now been extended into September. Was that the sense
The
of the
statewide lead
sentence, I
testing
think?
that has gotten pushed
Yeah.
back.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And then
Need to be done by May 31st, I believe.
Yeah, okay.
And then on the 5th sentence down, we are doing in these area, we are replacing with new faucets. What we are doing in these areas
Yep.
is we are replacing new faucets, something there. There was a bunch of them in this paragraph. And then on the 7th line down, faucets will be shut down as no filters on them and no longer needed, as there are no filters on them and they are no longer needed. No.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And then the next sentence, there are about 18 separate spots throughout the district where we are going to put maybe some point, we're going to maybe put some point of service filters, or that just reads weird with the put and maybe. But
Yeah, I think the word maybe is not necessary.
yes, that's all I had.
Yeah, okay.
And I just had one there, 2 lines down from there where it says 18 areas in the middle.
Mhm.
It should say one more time. It says on more time, but it should just say one.
Yes, right. Anything else? Any other comments or questions?
No.
All in favor? That's 5-0. Thank you. May I have a motion, please, to approve the minutes of our special meeting of Wednesday, August 4th?
I move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of Wednesday, August 4th, 2022.
I second, Jen.
Thank you, Jen. Questions or comments? Or corrections? Yeah, I actually have one. Under the summer hiring of professional staff, it's the third sentence. We have a grant-funded extended learning opportunities position, which is extended learning opportunities position. I think that just from the word which is just redundant.
Mm-hmm.
Just cut out that which is extended learning opportunities position.
The last sentence on that page says Mr. Caverly stated it's a 2-year grant-funded position and is not impacted by the budget. I think it should say does not impact the budget.
Yes,
Yeah.
it does not impact the budget. That's good. That's good. Any other comments or questions? All in favor? That's 5-0. Thank you. That brings us to the report of the chair. We've been working on this town officials meeting schedule. Do we now have dates?
I have the copy of the dates, so,
Oh, it's in front of me.
respond to Jessica's comments, we have a weekly, or excuse me, a monthly meeting, the second Wednesday of the month, and this is part of that goal, is to be able to make transparent what's happening, like what are the financials, how can we work together to save money, and so this is the schedule for those meetings. We have a letter ready to go tomorrow, once I get the blessing from our board, to be able to reach out to each of the town offices. The idea being that whomever hosts that meeting is going to be the person who will be responsible for creating the agenda. That's how we've always have done that, and so really getting that consistency around that. We've kind of taken that role over, kind of hosting all the meetings and doing all of the agendas, and it should be more of a collaborative process. So we're in the midst of being able to work through that, and that letter will go out tomorrow morning once the board has a chance to put their eyes on it.
Yep.
Sometimes.
Yeah, and so whoever's hosting the meeting essentially would be responsible for the Zoom link.
For the Zoom link and sending out the agenda
And
for the
that.
meeting.
All right.
Yes, correct.
And the way this works, Rebecca, is usually we can't have a quorum, so usually there's just two or
We
three who join.
coordinate before each meeting to find out who is able to attend, and then we limit the board attendance to no more than 3.
Okay. Thank you, John.
Mm-hmm.
This looks good. It's
Trying to stay with that
second Wednesday. Yep.
And I think one of the things that we talked about was trying to move the time to 8:30.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then also have the in-person option, but if people aren't able to attend, still have a Zoom link
Yep.
to be able to attend, so we have
Mhm.
as much participation as possible.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Any objections to this? I think we should go. We
Sounds
should
good.
approach the towns.
Yep. So
For sure.
I will
Great.
note ready to go tomorrow, we'll send it out.
Thank you.
Great.
I will see Tim tomorrow afternoon, we have a meeting at 2, another topic that we'll talk about
Yeah.
on the agenda, and I'll reach out to him.
Yeah,
Great.
and sometimes, so the board members sometime attend, like the town council members.
Yes.
So that's something definitely you can attend, just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah. Okay, next thing on the agenda, opening day is next Monday, and it's the first time in 3 years that we've been able to do it all together in the auditorium.
Yes.
Yeah, which is going to be very cool. It has been longstanding tradition that those board members who are able to attend that meeting, which is, the meeting starts at 8:30 on Monday morning in the auditorium, sit on the stage and we divvy up the list of the new staff, and each of us takes a turn at the microphone introducing and reading the brief bio. So I guess the first question is, how many of you are able to attend on Monday?
My last Monday at the hospital.
It's your last Monday at the hospital?
Yes.
So last year we didn't read their bios. We just read their names per building. Is this a difference that we're reading their bios?
This is how we always used to do it.
Oh,
Yeah.
used to do it.
Yeah.
So I think we.
So we've only ever done it on Zoom since
Right.
any of us.
Well, we did a
have done it.
pre-recording, yeah.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
just read the names
Yeah.
per building, so this is everybody and their background.
Yep.
Short
Yeah.
bio of each person.
Yep.
Yeah.
Who can make it? One?
I mean,
Two.
I can if it's not lengthy, because
Yeah, no,
I have to get to Durham.
Yeah, I'll reach out to Lisa
Yeah.
as well. I suspect it'll be,
I just need to double check.
okay, let me know.
Sports commitment.
Okay. Good. So, between now and the weekend, I'll get back to you with
Okay.
who's coming and how we're gonna split up the
Okay.
list.
What I did, just so for clarity, is that I did not include people who might have been like changing positions. So we had a person who transferred from the middle school to the high school. We're not going to do an introduction. We people that are new to the district.
Yep.
There are a couple of staff members who are coming back to the district after being away for some time, and we would include them, just for clarity. And then we also just kind of list off educational technicians that we've hired, food service workers, and just kind of just recognize them as new hires as well. We just do an entire bio, and we'll continue to work on this list over the next couple of days.
Okay,
Okay.
great.
Sounds good.
Fantastic.
Okay. That concludes the report of the chair and brings us to the report of the superintendent.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. The first thing I wanted to discuss tonight was really just talking about the district goals that I laid out to our administrative team when we had our retreat last week. And really what that is a summation of conversations that we've had as you've had as a board, of kind of the values that you hold, also what I'm seeing in the classrooms and what we're seeing in the buildings, and kind of these big picture ideas that we need to focus on. So the first one is really to create a safe learning environment for all students by creating a learning environment based on responsibility, kindness, and safety. So really that, that responsibility, the bully-free environment to be a part of, a place where all students can learn. We want to foster, model, and build a culture of civility for all. So really focusing on that civility and how do we have conversations with one another? How do we get back to those skills that may have been lost over, being remote, being separated socially from each other? So really taking the time to especially teach those skills and model those skills for everybody. Also to target and address the academic needs of all students through the use of data and exquisite instruction. So really taking a chance to look at student data. Now then how do we customize our instruction to meet the needs of those students? And then energize and evolve our multi-tier systems of support with fidelity across the district. So the MTSS program is designed to be able to help students who might need an extra boost. And so there's a 3-tier program that we'll talk a little bit about later, but really emphasizing those 4 major criteria to really focus our work. And so what does that mean? So that every week when we meet, each one of these goals will be part of that meeting. And so one meeting a month will be based on let's talk about observations. Let's talk about what do we look for when we go in the classroom. Let's work on observations together, and what do you see in the classroom? We'll work with RBT to be able to help us, really be really precise in what we're looking for. Another week we'll be talking about building safety, talking about a crisis plan, talking about ALICE, and then obviously talking about our anti-bullying work that we're doing in the safe school environment piece as well. And so, and then really this multi-tier system of support is a big idea. And really, it inherently happens more so in the elementary school or schools organically, and as it moves up to the upper levels, it gets to be a little bit more challenging. And I'll discuss that a little bit more when we go into the next part of my report. Any questions for anybody?
Oh, I'm really excited about this year.
Yeah.
I think this is some great topics.
Well, we talked about, an opportunity, to take the things that we've learned as a result of the pandemic and then also bring back those things that really, that we hold most dear. to really have a chance to really evolve education. And this is an opportunity that we have right now, and we need to turn that, last 2.5 years into a great springboard for change. And so what does that look like? And basing that around what students need. So I'm really looking forward to this grade.
It's great. I think this looks great.
Okay. The MTSS program, and so what that is really is a systematic way and a way to provide supports for students. And so our Tier 1 interventions are interventions that teachers do organically every day in the classroom. So it might be, reread a set of directions for a child, maybe allow them to collaborate with a peer, but it's things that happen organically in every single classroom in a district on a regular basis. Tier 2 are a little bit more of those more refined, intensive interactions or interventions. So it might be, someone who might need some reading support, someone who might need a daily check-in with a school counselor. It could vary depending on the need of the child. And then those third tier supports are really when we start to talk about is a 504 plan or a special education plan. It's really important for a child at that point in time. But there's a process that we go through, and I think sometimes when you put an acronym on things, people seem to make it bigger than it needs to be at times. And so think about a kindergarten classroom, let's just say, even pre-K for that matter. A pre-K classroom by state law has to have 1 teacher to 8 students, or you can have a teacher in an ed tech and have 16 students in that classroom. That's a state law, and we can't exceed that number. So organically, a teacher is going to be able to be highly immersed in those 16 students, and so that happens on a regular basis. First grade, again, it's basically built around a class size, and so maybe the class sizes go up to 18 now rather than 16. When they go to the Great Work School, it becomes 22 students. And then you go to the middle school where things start to change a little bit, and so now you go from having 1 teacher all day long to now you have basically 6 teachers over the course of the day, and so now creating a schedule where those staff members can get together and talk about students. And that's really what to me that boils down to what a middle school philosophy is. So our schedule at the middle school allows our 4 core sections, our math, social studies, science, and English language arts to be able to be available together to talk about students. So, the 4 of you could sit together and you share the same 80 students. And so as you start talking about students, like, what are you seeing in this class? What are you seeing in this class? And that organically is how it happens. When you go to the high school, variables start to stack. So you have, let's just for easy math say 700 students. Every student has 8 classes. Not every student has the same schedule, so all of a sudden it starts to become a much bigger issue. And so now, how do we do that in a more comprehensive fashion? So really having that discussion with our staffs, really becoming more aware of starting really, what are those great Tier 1 supports that we can do? Like, what does that look like in an AP physical classroom? What does that look like in pre-K? And really, spending our time working on that. So I've created a handbook. It really is a philosophical handbook that's going to be able, to given to our staff, given to our principals, and then shared with the community. We're kind of in the final draft stages right now, but it's really to let people know what the expectations are. It also allows people to understand, like, what are those, those benchmarks or those points where we need to be concerned, and so how do we measure that? What does it look like for a kindergarten? What are those points of data that we look at that we want to be, to be concerned about? As an 8th grader, what does that look like? What does attendance data look like? We really try to be really precise with our staff to understand, like, here are these critical moments in time that we need to intervene. The other part of this is really wrapping around it and communicating with families and saying to families, look, this is what we're doing. We're in the process of this. Because someone needs supports for a period of time doesn't mean that they're forever in a place. They just, at that moment in time, they need help. And so maybe those Tier 1 supports will work. Maybe they don't work, and we have to go to the Tier 2 supports, and the Tier 2 supports may work. If those don't work, the Tier 3 supports are inherently something that we do anyway, so that's probably the strongest part of the program. The trickiest part to develop is the Tier 2 interventions. That's the real work that we need to spend on. So I just wanted to give you a draft copy. We are sharing it with our building leadership teams. I've shared it with our administrators. I'm getting some feedback, and then this document will be shared early in September with our entire community, be on the website as well as for people.
Yeah, thank you. There's a lot of work went into this. I'm very familiar with tier learning, and I love that you've added the behavior piece in with the tiering, because I don't see that very often. I usually see like the PBIS stuff, and I think this is just totally doable. So.
Well, there was a picture, and when we went to a conference, it was just, it really struck me, is it showed a closet, and it probably looks like, my desk at times, like, but there's papers everywhere, but like, I know where they are, but it's not, you couldn't go on my desk necessarily and find what you're looking for. And then they showed another picture with everything in rows and columns. And so really the image is that we're already doing it, right? We just need to find a way to organize it and to be able to provide a systematic approach. So to me, I was like, wow, that really makes a lot of sense. And so I just feel like philosophically, I needed to make a statement to say, this is what it looks like. This is what we're going to be doing, and this is the steps that we're going to take. And so that's the work that we're undertaking.
Excellent. Great. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Probably going back to May, there were some questions raised around remote participation in board meetings. And our policy committee talked about it a little bit. We got some legal advice, and then we said that we wanted to have a discussion as a board as to what the next steps would be. So I shared some information with you regarding what the attorneys told us was probably the approach that we needed to take, and kind of some if-then statements.
Yep.
With that, depending on what the decision of the board is this evening, we'll determine what our next steps are. If the board wants to go forward with this, we would then go back to the policy committee and create a policy around this, or we would say that this is not something that necessarily fits for the board. And so that's the conversation tonight. And so basically, give me 1 second, there's really three kind of big ideas that if we want to have the ability for a board member to participate remotely. That doesn't mean watch the meeting, but that means to be an active voter and participate in the board meeting. There are three things that need to be met. One, we need to have a policy that allows that. Two, we need to limit the reasons why people could do that. So there are really three specific reasons around state law around like why that might happen. And then four would be that if the board's gonna have that opportunity, then we need to give the public the same ability to do that. And so that really was kind of the crux of the issue. I think having we talked in the past about being able to be here in person. I think that's the critical part. But this was a conversation that we wanted to have a board, and I wanted to open it to all of you to have a discussion amongst yourselves as to what you'd like me to do next.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to say it. So I think that when board members are elected by their towns, it's very important to be participatory in not only the subgroups, but attend all the meetings. However, I do understand that I've missed one meeting in the 2 years I've been here. I was in Greece, in another country. At the time, it was something I had been planning. So I can see like there's sometimes you just have to miss a meeting, right? And so when you're sick, right? But everything else needs to be planned ahead. But I'm wondering, in those very rare occasions where, we have a board member that's maybe traveling for work or what have you, that it's like a real thing and that person wants to participate, like, could we offer that? But just like this would just be known as like a rare occasion, perhaps? Or are we saying no, it would have to be opened up to the public on that one day?
I think it's pretty, the reason for being able to participate remotely is pretty narrow. And I'm gonna, in my understanding, with speaking with Drummond and Woodson, is that, that's a pretty well-defined thing. So that might be, for example, due to physical limitation, as opposed to someone being on vacation. Like being on vacation would not be a reason that we would do that. But if someone weren't physically able to attend a meeting because of any, for a reason, that would be an opportunity. We can build a policy around it and define those three things. And I believe, and I don't have it in front of me, and I apologize, but Maine state law is pretty clear that I think there's three criteria that have to be met in order to do that. The yang to that is that if the board is going to be allowed to do that, then that opens up the public to be able to, then we would have a virtual opportunity for people to come to the meetings virtually and be able to present, their comments to the public virtually. And so we can't do one without doing the other.
Oh, okay.
But
So-
only at those meetings where you are doing the remote.
No, I think what it would
In
be is that
general.
if you allow it, you allow it.
So you allow it
So
once.
you can't.
You have to open it up.
Right, you can't pick
Oh.
and choose to say
It's either
because,
it is or it
because,
isn't.
pretend I was a board member that because John isn't there today, then we could open up to the public. If we were gonna do it, we were gonna open up at all times where we would then say there was no one in person to be able to do a presentation to the board. Let's go see if there's anybody remotely, if there's a person who wanted to make a presentation to the board. That makes me a little bit nervous because I don't know the controls that are in place. You don't know where a person lives. You don't know necessarily
The background.
I just don't know.
Yeah.
That would be a new step. If that's something the board wants to 100%, then we can do that. But just understand it's not. You can't pick and choose. It's either we're going to do it and we're going to do it for everybody. And if we do it as all of you do the we, then there's kind of criteria as to what would qualify for that. But if we do that, then there's an opportunity for everybody else to do it for any reason.
Yeah.
Which then also creates, like, then you need someone to moderate the online hand raising and all of that, yeah.
Yeah.
Which,
Yeah, I'm leaning towards
Yeah.
no. I think, I mean, as much as we'd want to make a accommodation for someone that's on a work trip or what have you, then, but I think that this opens up a door, and it's our responsibility to show up to the meetings.
I agree.
It's kind of too bad. I think the person who was advocating most strongly for this was Lisa, and she's not here tonight, unfortunately.
And if I remember correctly, when we talked about it kind of at the board meeting, we discussed this, in open session. I think the thought process was that if we did it periodically, it wasn't an either or,
Right.
So now it becomes, it's this more larger picture
Right.
where that if we're gonna do it, we have to do it for all.
Yep.
And it does open up
Yeah.
another layer of
Yeah,
Right.
I think that layer just adds a complication to it,
Yeah.
and just an extra piece of work, right?
Yeah, and I feel like we're a small board in a smaller-ish town. It's not like we're a major city and there's 20 members that we're trying to accommodate. I feel like in the spirit of our board, I feel like we all value the in-person aspect.
So the
Yeah.
policy committee did discuss this.
We did discuss this.
Oh,
Yeah.
you did? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So what did you come to a conclusion?
I think as much, and and Jen was there, and and Sue at the time, I'm going to paraphrase, but I think as much as we would like to be able to say this makes sense, and it would be a great thing to do, I just think as you start to peel back, I think we become a whole nother layer of management.
Yeah,
And
like
I
a
think
can
that
of worms.
becomes a much bigger issue than what it solves.
Right.
And so,
Yeah.
Yep.
It's kind of like a bummer that just one-offs, like for emergency type issues, or like being sick, like, you don't want to expose folks.
but
But-
basically it means they can't vote, is what it,
Yeah.
or they can't respond. I mean, they can still obviously be here and watch, but it's just they can't be an active member.
Right.
I would say, and forgive me for saying this, but I cannot remember a time when we haven't had a quorum. So it's not like the quorums, we're consistently running into issues where we don't have a quorum
Right.
either. Right. That's the other piece.
Right.
Not in my 9 years.
No, not, I
Yeah.
mean, I think there was one time it was close, and
Yep.
people were able to kind of shuffle things around. So what I'm hearing right now, is there a consensus that we probably
That's my
want to leave
sense.
things the way that,
Yeah.
where it is? We'll discuss is that the.
Table it for now,
Yep.
and see if an urgent need arises that would cause us to reconsider.
Okay.
Is my sense.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So for now, we don't want, as a board, we don't
That's
want
what I'm
to
hearing right now. So when you say
Correct.
table it, you mean
Yeah.
leave it the way it is right
Yep,
now,
yep.
then,
Yeah.
then if it comes back up
some
again.
situation
we can
should
revisit it.
arise
Yep.
that
Yeah.
we need to revisit.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
And we could plan ahead on a one-off, right, though, if we really needed to. Like,
Well,
if
then we need a policy
Yeah.
Oh.
and we need,
Can't do
yeah.
this
Oh, we
unless
can't.
you
One-off.
have the
Yeah.
policy in
you
place.
can't, you have some,
Yeah,
I
that's-
don't know.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Forget it.
Yep. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Kind of on that same path of policy, Garrett and Jeremy have done a lot of work to create some search engines, and we're going to share kind of what that looks like. One of the issues, Rebecca, I'm not sure if you've ever had the pleasure of trying to go on our website and trying to search a policy on that in the search engine. It's really difficult to find anything, and so we've spent some time to try to make it user-friendly, and so Garrett's going to kind of show
Yeah.
what we've evolved to.
If you know exactly what you're looking for, it's not too bad.
Yeah. That's when I start
Yes.
yelling for a lane. That's my cue.
Sure.
I'm having a hard time.
Me too.
It's not hot in here anyway. Okay. Thank you, Heather.
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Garrett Poole. I'm Director of Technology for the district. I have a brief presentation for you regarding the searchable board policy project that we have been working on. The request that we received was pretty straightforward. Find a solution that will allow for us to actually search for policies by a keyword or term or specific policy letter. Right now, we have our current solution set up with Google Docs. It's tedious to manage, slow to load and navigate. It's disjointed, and because it is disjointed, it does produce some unreliable search results when you actually try to query terms through it. I'm pretty sure most of us are familiar with how it's set up currently, but I will just go ahead and open that up really quickly and just demonstrate. And so this is the district webpage for board policies that's currently in use. I'm just going to open up section A, which you'll see loads us into a Google document it's not a small Google document. There's 48 pages here, and it's a table of contents that essentially has each policy, and you click it to get to it, and it redirects you to that particular policy. The problem here is if you're in section A and you're searching for a particular term, you're only going to get results from section A. So things in section B or C may not be picked up. And that can be fairly tedious to actually go through and search by a particular term to see if a policy actually covers something. And so that's currently how things are set up. And what we would have liked to have done was found a way to actually work with Apogee and ThrillShare, our current web hosting platform. But unfortunately, ThrillShare does not have the ability to isolate search results. So if you were to put a query through their search engine, you're going to get results that are actually posted to the district website from news articles or other posts from the buildings of the district, and not necessarily get the data that you were looking for. And so because of that, we had to look for a different solution. And the solution we ended up going with is a platform called Bookstack. It's fully searchable. It's a single pane of glass. It's self-contained, so these board policies are all that you're going to be searching when you actually do a search. It's also easier to manage and update, and it was a more economical solution when compared to similar solutions that actually offered board policy or document searching or indexing. And so what I'm going to do now is just open up the implementation that we've been working on. And when we do that, you'll see it takes us to the RSU 35 school board bookshelf inside of Bookstack. And we have a book for RSU 35 board policies. And just to keep things consistent, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open up section A again. And what you'll notice is that section A is essentially a chapter of the book, and then each policy here is actually a page within the chapter. And so each policy has its own page now. It's not a mass, section that covers every single page or article or policy that we have for that particular section. Each one is independent. And so if you open that up, you actually get the policy and the relevant data associated with that policy. One of the biggest criteria or driving factors for this particular implementation was to actually allow for searching of policies to actually get results pertinent to a particular term or keyword. So just in this example, I'm going to go ahead and search for the word assessment. And you'll notice that we have search results, the first one being ILAA, which is student assessment. It's in the title, but also other policies have come up as well where the actual term assessment has actually been referenced. So we can see anywhere in the district policy where particular terms are being used or which particular policies are handling particular terms. So that's currently the new system that we're working on moving towards. And it's mostly there. But moving forward, we're going to be working with Elaine and Therese on actually the whole policy workflow and formatting. Unfortunately, taking these pages and breaking them out from Google Docs has been pretty time-consuming and problematic. The formatting isn't quite right. So we really had to take each current page or policy from that larger document and make an individual little page from that. And of course, some of the formatting got lost, so we had to it's recreating some of that formatting. And I do want to give a shout out to Riley, the tech at the high school here. He did quite a bit of that, instrumental, pulling out the individual policies from the larger documents and tidying them up. So obviously, as we've been working through this, there have been a few revisions that have occurred. So we'll be working towards actually getting those revisions into Bookstack. And once those revisions are inside of Bookstack, we'll be able to actually publish the link on the district website and make it accessible to the district and our communities. That's essentially a quick rundown of where we're at, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
This is great, Garrett. This is much needed, so this is super helpful. My only feedback would be, is there somewhere on that sort of first thing where the icon for board policies is? Right here? Nope, back one more. Where it sort of talks about, if I was a parent, I wouldn't understand the codes that J's are for this and I's are for this. Is there some sort of easy key that sort of just helps just your average person who doesn't know about the coding, or is that there?
Personally, not at this point in time. We've kind of modeled what was already in place on the district website.
Okay.
Certainly, we could play around with some of the settings, or maybe under the different sections, there might be a way to add certain data. That's something we could look into.
Okay.
Could even do a tab if we wanted to, right? Just to say, this is what the,
We'd almost,
how do I read policy?
Yeah, unfortunately, the way this platform works is it's really looking for books. So we might make a separate book that's like a welcome book explaining.
Yes.
Or actually
Yes.
a chapter
That could
about
work.
the policies that actually says.
Like a policy 101 type of, like, just, yeah, bullet points about,
I'm imagining if this works as effectively as it looks like it's going to, people aren't gonna much care anymore what the A's and the C's
Right.
are.
if you can
If
word
I can go in there and type
Right.
class size and I get the policy, that's what I want.
Right,
As a principal, this was critical, and so if you had a
Yes.
behavioral incident,
and you could
you
just,
could put everyone
Yes.
against it was.
Yeah, like
Yes.
that.
yes,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's nice.
huge,
It's a lot of work went into that.
Yeah.
Clearly.
yeah.
All summer.
But certainly, if you think that would be beneficial,
Huge.
it's something that we could look.
Just I mean,
Yeah,
it's not something
it
that
certainly
like
would
has to
help.
happen, but I think it would be, it was news to me when I joined the policy committee that the J's mean something, or the I's mean something, or the A's mean something. But yes, that this sort of search feature keyword eliminates really a need to really know that, but
So maybe a
Still
mini
might
book
be
where it
helpful.
says how to search a policy, and then what you can say, like, this is what they mean, like, you know, I's, J's mean students, K means community, and then we could, okay.
just a thought.
That would be cool.
Just a thought.
Okay.
That would be
This
a
is
nice little
great.
added
This
benefit.
is great.
Awesome. Thank you,
Huge,
Karen.
huge
Yeah,
improvement.
that's awesome. When is this online, we think?
We have to kind of go through the revisions, but we haven't really set a firm timeline yet. I think we have a meeting scheduled next month.
Do you think realistically, if we could have it up and going by is the 28th, is that the first policy meeting? That's Sunday, 28th of September?
Yep,
Have
28th,
it up
yep.
and going for the kind of the final overview at that point, then we,
Elaine, do you think that's feasible?
I think that what we had to do to bring you up to speed from our meeting was, you were up to date to March, and we had policy meetings where there were some policies that were updated, and Therese was transferring them over, so. I think so.
Okay.
Cool.
I think that's feasible.
thank you very much.
Great,
Yes,
thank you
thank
so
you so much.
much.
That's great.
That's great.
So earlier this evening, our F&F committee had an opportunity to kind of go to the different buildings and see kind of some of the projects that were being done from a facility standpoint. I had asked Heidi to come present tonight some of the professional development that our staff has been doing over the course of the summer. And so Heidi, I'm going to turn it over to you to kind of share the work that we've been doing this summer.
Need you guys a little
Handouts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So John asked me to talk a little bit about professional development. I'm gonna highlight some stuff that we've been working on this summer, but also kind of give you the projection and kind of about how we plan PD in general and what we have in store for the coming year. So I think one of the things that people may ask is sort of how do you determine what professional development you offer as a district? And there's several things that we look at. John did shared the district goals with you for the year, so that's important. Like, we try to stay focused on goals and not try to do everything all the time. Sometimes the state makes changes or mandates things, and we have to do professional development around that. For example, there's a state law that says every 5 years the academic standards have to be reviewed and revised. So that's a rolling process. So they do a couple content areas each year, and it rotates. So that response to changes in standards is kind of an ongoing thing that we have to respond to. Every spring, usually in March, I send out a staff survey to all staff, teachers, ed techs, administrators, and ask them, what do you need? What are your priorities? What are your goal areas? You know, what formats do you like? Would you rather take a graduate class? Would you rather have a workshop? So I get a lot of feedback from staff that way. And then the other thing we use is our district data. So if we're looking at data and we notice a weakness, then that tells us we might need to do some professional development in that area. So those are kind of the 4 big things that I think about. So John went through the goals for this coming year. I just wanted to put them up there because we use those when we think about PD. So this summer we did a bunch of stuff. I feel like summer's always busy. We had an AVMR math intervention training in July. That was teachers from our district, math interventionists. You all supported new math intervention positions in the elementary schools, and those teachers came and got some great training from Devin. We also had some teachers join us from some other districts that are interested in the work that we're doing. We had our Summer Institute, which some of you were able to participate in. We had 39 different workshops that were offered at Summer Institute, and it was a 3-day event. And we had really good attendance. I think Marshwood had something in the neighborhood of 55-ish teachers attend. And that's all just voluntary on their part. And it could be they come for a 1-hour workshop. It could be they do 3 full days of programming. It really depends. And the topics ranged from, how to use a rubric in Google Classroom to, a 2-day workshop on how to be a mentor to a new teacher, to a 3-hour session with Pine Tree on sort of building strong relationships in response to trauma. Like, how do we use relationships to help kids recover from trauma? Like, just the whole gamut. And I really try to tailor those Summer Institute workshops around that survey that I get from staff so that I'm responding to what people are saying they want. We have 2 days of work this summer on aligning our kindergarten. So this is part of that broader goal of making sure that we are functioning as a district and that our 2 primary schools are more alike than different. And so part of the way that we're approaching that this year is being really deliberate about getting our grade level teams together cross school. So we started with the kindergarten this summer. We had a day in July. We have another day tomorrow, working with Kevin Perks from West Ed, and he's really helping us, kind of teaching us some strategies for helping teachers work through that alignment process. And it's been very, very positive. We're trying to bring teachers together to develop a we mentality as opposed to this is how we do it and this is how we do it. Let's talk about how we do it at Marshwood, not Central's one way and Elliott's another way. And we hope to continue that alignment work up through at least those first 4 or 5 primary grades where we have the 2 separate schools. We had 2 days of PLC facilitator training that just wrapped up today. And that really is around our commitment to making the best possible use of that Thursday time that we have, that late start, early release time. That's really the time in which our teachers can put student data on the table and really analyze that data together and plan instruction from it and really collaboratively support kids. So that training was huge because what we're building is teacher leadership there. We're building the capacity of our teachers to facilitate those grade level groups, those department level groups, using protocols, making sure that those meetings are run efficiently and that they stay focused on students. And then there were a couple cool conferences. As you know, we took a group to the ASCA conference in Austin, and I'm going to share a little more about that in a little while. And we also were fortunate enough to receive the ELO grant from the state of Maine, and we sent a team to the ELO conference up at Orono, and they brought back some great ideas. So that's some stuff that happened this summer. And then looking forward, I'm sorry, this is probably small for you to read. Looking forward to this school year, if you think about those district goals, under that sort of kindness, safety, and civility, those 2 goals, we have several things planned. So we have some continued work with Jermaine Moore. He's going to be working with all of our staff. Every staff member will get 2 90-minute sessions with Jermaine over the course of the fall. And it's a 2-part series where he's going to be working on emotional intelligence and how we build and use our emotional intelligence and support productive discourse in the classroom, particularly when things get tricky, when hard conversations come up and teachers need the skills to sort of navigate and facilitate those conversations. So that's really going to be the focus of our work with Jermaine. Obviously, we have Alice work that will continue under the safety umbrella. We have Komochis, which I'm going to spend a little time telling you guys about in a little bit later tonight, which is an SEL curriculum that we found when we were at ASCA. We also have access to an SEL survey tool that we're going to start using this fall through the Panorama surveys, where we can do a beginning of year and end of year SEL assessment for students. So we'll actually have some data on how students are doing from that social emotional learning lens, which most of that has been observational or qualitative in the past, so this will give us another indicator in that area. And we have ongoing work with restorative practice. We've committed to that over the last 2 years, and the teams in the schools are starting to get a little traction. Under the academic and behavioral success umbrella, we have MTSS, which John talked about. That's going to be a primary focus in all of our buildings. Komochi's, I think, falls under both. We have the math intervention work, which will continue. Having Devin Weber in that intervention role where she's going to be supporting students and supporting intervention staff is going to be huge for us, because she's going to be able to continue to train and build teacher capacity in terms of math intervention. We have our grade level and department level PLCs. That's fundamental. That's where the magic happens, in my opinion, when you put groups of teachers together and they're focused on how students are doing or not doing and what can we do to improve that. That's where we get the biggest bang for our buck in terms of student outcome growth. And then I think from the administrative perspective, you know, our focus is going to be on how do we supervise for exquisite instruction? How are we sure that we're supporting our staff to the greatest degree that we can, and that we are, you know, pushing when we need to push and supporting when we need to support. And we're going to be continuing to work with Research for Better Teaching. That's the organization that does Skillful Teacher and Skillful Leader. We have a long-standing relationship with them, and they're fantastic. And then, you know, I talked a little bit about the kindergarten alignment work. We want to move up to first grade as we keep having those conversations. So that's, I'm sure there's other things, but those are the things that are at top of mind for me right now. And this is just a somewhat unrelated slide, but I wanted to put it in here because I think it's important. So one of the things I've been working on is writing up a curriculum review document for us to have as a district, and that outlines kind of what we do in our different content areas, what programs we're using, and also details sort of when and how we review curriculum. Because I think that there is a tendency to perhaps look at data or not, or just look at a situation and say, oh, this isn't working, and go to this next shiny thing that might be out there and be like, oh, this is going to solve all our problems. And what I have found in my experience is that sometimes we don't give things a long enough time to be successful. We don't get good enough at them to see whether or not they're actually working. So what I recommend is that we look at a 4 to 5 year cycle where we don't try to do everything at once, but we try to be strategic and respond to kind of when the state comes out with those new standards, like to be a year off of them is a good thing. So it's a little strange right now because COVID kind of slowed everybody up, but my hope is that this year we can really focus on that K-5, pre-K to 5 literacy, specifically writing and spelling, which are 2 areas that teachers really want to work on. 6 to 12 ELA, while they've continued to do really good work and made some fantastic adjustments during COVID, they do have some revised standards that they haven't had a chance to spend much time with. So I anticipate them really digging into those this year. And then last year, I was able to do quite a bit of work with the 6 to 12 health teachers, but we have a hole in K to 5 health. We just do. And so we need to continue to talk about that and figure out what some solutions might be to do a better job in that area. It's not that we don't do anything. We have fantastic PE teachers, and our classroom teachers do what they can, and our nurses do what they can, and our counselors do what they can. But it's not, nobody's owning it, if you know what I mean. So that's an area that I want us to talk more about. So that's kind of the rough draft for this year. But I just wanted you guys to see this so that you know, like, if you bring something up and say, oh, I really want us to look at this new science thing, I might say, great, can we park that? Because it's not on this year's docket, that kind of a thing, if that makes sense. So do you guys have any questions about any of that stuff?
Oh, I'm so excited. This is all mapped out, and it's so clear, and it's so true. It's, you know, you got to give programs a chance. Otherwise, it's really a waste of resources. And so, yeah, using them for a certain amount of time to see if they work is just very smart. So glad to see this. And the health curriculum, oh my gosh. Yes. puberty training or just taught or discussions, like, you know, those.
So we did have some puberty ed come to our summer institute this year. Which was
Wonderful.
awesome.
Yay.
Built a nice relationship with Maine Family Planning.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Yes.
So I want to remind you, and Joe might have been on the board at this time, but when I became principal of Marshall Middle School, we could not guarantee with fidelity that students had health until their sophomore year in high school.
Yeah.
And that was less than 10 years ago. And so that's when we instituted the Allied Art program, where we, mandated it for all sixth graders, all seventh graders, and all eighth graders. Now it's part of the, the wellness, course. So, we did have a position at the Great Works School, which is a part-time position, and that went away. But just, this has been kind of an ongoing conversation, particularly around the health curriculum. So.
But I will say this, Cindy Travers has been such a gift, and she's really been a leader in this area. Like, she was at every one of those puberty trainings, and she probably could have taught them, but she was there, and she sees the need, and she's really been fantastic about working with the high school. That was really good work this year, and I think she's in the middle, and she likes being in the middle, so she wants to be able to work with the elementary schools as well.
Good.
Great.
Great. Yeah, those American Girl doll books only go so far at home.
Well, and I have a fifth grade, or I have a now sixth grade boy, and I was surprised when I was talking with him this summer to find out that they hadn't had any puberty education.
No.
And when I worked at Noble, it was the nurses and the counselors that got
Yeah.
together, and we tag teamed it, and we went through all of the all the classes. So all the fifth graders had it, and we did a class with the girls, a class with the guys, and then a class together.
Yep, that's how we did it.
And we got, parental permission, but it was great. There were a lot of questions. People would hand in anonymous questions, but it was a very clear-cut program.
And we had some of that happening, like John said, at one point, and
Yeah.
the resources shifted, and that kind of went away, and COVID
Right.
happened, and it's been a few years since
Right.
we have been doing it the way I think we should be.
And we've had some ongoing conversations about how do we maximize those Allied Art specialist experiences at the
Right.
Great Works School, just from a scheduling standpoint. So that's part of the work that we'll look at this year.
Well, and the puberty is a direct transition to sex education, and if they don't have that, I mean, it seems like a natural transition from Great Works School into middle school and high school. Like, they need that.
Yeah.
And they're not gonna get it at home the way that we need them to.
No, and they do get that sort of baseline puberty education in sixth grade. That's a portion of the sixth grade health curriculum, but my concern is that's too late for some.
Yes,
of them.
absolutely.
You know,
Kids are
they
going
need
through
it in
puberty much
fourth and
earlier
fifth
now.
grade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fourth
and
grade,
fifth.
fourth
Yeah.
and fifth, absolutely.
Yeah, fourth and fifth, for sure.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank
Heidi.
you, Heidi.
Number 6 on my agenda, or my report, excuse me, is just thinking about asking the board to start thinking about topics for presentations. And I'd like to try to frame it this way, if we could, is thinking about kind of what those district goals are, what the board goals are, and really trying to focus those presentations on those things. And so, for instance, we've had the conversation over and over again, like, what are we doing about responsibility and creating the culture and accountability? And so it would make sense to at some point have a presentation from each one of the schools on how are they handling bullying education, how are we creating safe schools for kids. Like, those would be things that we would want, I think would be a logical thing to talk about. But really trying to think about big picture, what are the goals that we really want to focus in on this year as we kind of get back, and then really catering those presentations right around those things. But as you
Makes
start
sense.
to think about that, certainly share this with the board chair, and then we can begin to create a schedule.
Great.
Okay?
Yeah. Can we at our next working session as a board, maybe discuss some of our yearly
Sure.
goals as a board? Maybe put that on the agenda because I don't think we
Yeah.
talked about
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
recently.
Absolutely.
That sounds good.
So we've spent a lot of time talking about, the sense of civility sometimes is one of those things we feel like suffered as a result of the pandemic, and how, how to interact with each other. And, we saw, if you look at, the data, we saw, an increase in the number of behavioral referrals in some of the buildings. We also saw an increase significantly in damage that was done in the buildings. And so we're not the only school district to feel that way. That's really a national trend. But how do we start to recreate that narrative, and how do we start to be able to get things to the place where we want to be? And so one of the areas I think it's really important is talking about transportation. And so those issues don't just go away, at 8:30 when they show up, for the first day of school or whatever. They happen that hour before school on the bus ride and the bus ride home. And so to me, there's really 3 phases to doing this. And part of it is we need to share expectations, we need to build rapport, and we need to be consistent. And so building those 3 things, how do we approach that? So I shared with you a draft rubric that we would share with all families and students around bus behavior recommendations. Frankly, as we kind of went through the process, there were some holes. And so what do we do? Let me go to the 2 extremes. So what we don't want to have happen is I don't want to create a system where I don't allow a bus driver to say to little Joe Long who gets on the bus, Joe, it's your first day of school, maybe throwing a pencil isn't the best idea, let's not do that anymore. Like, we want to have an opportunity to work with him and get to know him and build that rapport, rather than all of a sudden, you know, Joe, you are getting a write-up and we're going to go see the assistant principal right away. So we want to build that rapport. We also don't want to create a system where if I'm the assistant principal, I can't have that same opportunity to try to build a rapport with a child, because like, what's the goal? The goal is for every child to have a meaningful adult relationship in their lives as part of school. How do you feel engaged? How do I feel seen? How do I feel heard? And so we want to make sure that whatever system we create, we have that flexibility for people to build those relationships. At the same time, I also don't want a situation where if I'm a bus driver, I, you know, try to let things go and I'm trying to be a good guy, and things are going to get better, things are going to get better, things are going to get better. And then all of a sudden in December, I'm pulling my hair out because I haven't done any referrals, and all of a sudden I go to Mr. Long and say, Mr. Long, here are 7 referrals that happened since September, right? Because that doesn't help anybody.
Yep.
On the other side, I don't want to be the bus driver who's written up every referral that like they're supposed to be doing and not feeling like they have a voice with the principals and the things aren't being addressed. And so there's the box. And so let's talk about that. Let's talk about, you know, what the expectations are, and let's talk about, you know, what the consequences may be for those types of things. And I don't want to be consequence driven, but I think we need to be clear. And so we're building that program right now. We're also, I think the most important part of this program, though, is we're going to take time those first 2 days of school, maybe the first week of school, where we're going to bring the bus drivers in, and they're going to have the opportunity to address you know, the students that are on the bus with the administrators. And so it's kind of like those types of things that, you know, I'm going to use my nephew as an example. He had a little bump in the road this summer, and so what did I do? I picked up the phone, I had him with me, and I called the school and said, like, just so we're all on the same page, we're all hearing the same message right now, right? This is going to be the rules. And so the same idea. So let's have the students there, let's have the administrators there, let's have the bus drivers here. So we're all on the same page. So we can triangulate, we're building rapport, and we're being very, very clear. And so again, this is the types of things that we started, like these are the standards that we need to set, and we need to be consistent with it. The other thing that's really going to be a little bit tricky is that at the elementary schools, frankly, a bus referral is maybe a piece of paper. Like we have a form, but it might be a piece of paper. Where at the high school and middle school, it's a little bit different. They're really infinite campus driven. They're technology driven in how they do things. So what I didn't want to have happen is a poor bus driver trying to manage the students' behavior, kind of having the issues around how do I do this, because they're focused on keeping everybody safe. Like they want to take the 65 kids or 60 kids in that bus and get them to school safely without any problems. That's the big idea. And I didn't want them thinking, okay, this is how Central School handles it. This is how the Great Work School handles it. But you know what? This is how the high school handles it. We didn't want to do this. We wanted to come up with a consistent system. And so now we're going to be using technology to do this. And so we have a bunch of old iPads that are 20 iPads that we were able to find that Garrett got his hands on for us, that we're going to provide to bus drivers and give them access to Infinite Campus so that they can put a write-up in Infinite Campus as they speak. There's going to have to be some training on how to use their technology, and it's going to have to be some training on how to, you know, write those documentations up, because there is a legal document that you're creating, but we're going to work on that. But that allows instantaneous information. So if I push send on that button, if Joe Long is the assistant principal, he's going to get that right away. And when Joe goes in to resolve that, and that's resolved, the bus driver will get an email back right away saying this is what happened. So we're all on the same page.
Yeah, that's good.
So we're trying to close that communication loop. So I just wanted to share with you. I want to give credit to Kevin Fillion and Peter Harrison did a really nice job, and it was really good to have kind of the 2 different age levels present, because there are different issues that we addressed. So we'll be working on this, and we'll be rolling this out next week.
Wow.
But just so we're aware. Okay.
Nice work.
Remind me with Rollinsford what the bus situation is. I don't remember. Yeah.
It's
Are
a
they
sticky-
still
it-
using their own?
Yeah, it's a sticky wicket.
Okay.
So we do not provide transportation for Rollinsford.
Right.
And so we met with First Student and the Rollinsford superintendent a number of different times. And basically, they're responsible for the discipline that takes place on their bus.
Okay.
And so if there's a problem on their bus, and so in a perfect world, again, if at 7:19 when they get off the bus, all the problems went away, it would be fine. But obviously, sometimes kids have problems in the bus, they bring it into the classroom, and then it does become our issue. So we've got to work together. But really, from a legal standpoint, I don't know if we would have the right to be able to say, you know what, Joe, I hate to pick on you, but you're sitting next to me. So Joe's a
I'm the kid with the
Rollinsford
pencils.
student on the bus, and I'm the principal of Marshwood High School, and I say, you know what, Joe, you can't ride the Rollinsford bus anymore. I don't know legally if we have the right to do that
Right.
any differently than if we were to say, Joe, you can't get in the taxi today that you're taking to school, because they're
Right.
hiring a service to do that. Now,
Right.
the service has to manage that.
Yep.
And the district has to manage that. But we've been working really hard with Lori and First Student to be able to kind of get some clarity around this, because it's not easy, because it does get a little bit gray, and we want to be good partners.
Right.
So that's how we're going to go forward. We have put on the table, if they want us to take over that portion of things,
Okay.
then certainly let us know with that. But if we were to do that, there would be a fee for us to do that.
Yep.
So that's something we could talk about.
Yeah.
And so we're not at that point right now, but again, we want to be good partners and be able to be a good part of this conversation. I will say, Rollinsford has a beautiful PBIS-based system, which is pretty prescriptive to what they're doing. We worked with Danny Hilliard, who does a really nice job with that for them. He provided us a copy of what they did, and we've kind of taken that and created a little bit more of a process that works better for us. And
Okay.
so we basically took behaviors and put it down into civility and safety. Those are the
Great.
two categories that we're gonna deal with. And so I think we're gonna be better off. There might be some bumps in the road a little bit earlier. I hope the bus drivers feel supported by this. I also, Denise Frick is really the person who should manage that with the transportation department. So this allows Denise to be able to have those direct conversations, have data in her hands right away. And so there should be, very, very clear turnaround of data, and turnaround of information.
Yep.
So,
Excellent.
Very good.
Any questions about what's happening with that? Also, over the course of the summer, we took a tremendous amount of time to update our district crisis plan. And so going through that, and crisis plan is really becoming a passé word. It's really a critical incident plan. A critical incident planning team is the term that's used now. And so really being clear with our buildings what needs to happen. And so if there's a critical incident planning team, here are the people that are on that team who meet on a regular basis to discuss issues. There's also critical incident resources, so it might be maybe Rex Gosling, who's the head custodian at Marshall Middle School, may not be on the planning team, but he's one of the resources that if there were an issue, if there were a boiler breakage, he would be the person that we would call. Maybe Todd Hughes might be on the planning team to be ahead of that. And so we're just trying to get those resources aligned, and then kind of really developing clear procedures for certain incidents as they occur. And so then having that in a digital format. And so the format that we had was an old paper and pencil format. We did not even have a digital version of it, so there's been a tremendous amount of work updating things, updating laws, updating policies. So I feel really good about the work that's been happening in that area. At this point in time, we've shared it with the administrators. They are then taking it back to their building teams, and the building crisis planning teams are going to look at that, give us any feedback, and they'll provide us that feedback by the 28th of September. And then at that point in time, we'll make the final revisions. On the 28th of September, Navigate 360 is the company that we're working with, is coming in and doing the digitalization of all of the building layouts. They're going to be coming in and doing that. They're going to show us the online resources that they have. The next week, we will then work with their version of Crisis Go, which is really that on-time communication system that will be in place. We'll continue to use Crisis Go through the end of October, but we're going to really optimize that. I think it's October 6th, is that right, Ryan? That Friday?
I think the first day was wasn't right either.
The 3rd is that Monday, and then is the 8th?
I think it's the 26th.
26th, and the 8th is the professional development day in October. So we'll maximize that time for professional development. So a lot of work going on there. People really pulling together. David Creech has had a great deal of experience with this type of planning, so he's been a huge resource for us. David Gratian has been fantastic technology-wise with that. Rich Buzzle has been fantastic with that, and so really just getting a lot of different voices heard from. there's also things that we have to address in our crisis plan that are really difficult to plan for, right? And so like one of those things is if there's an incident after school, at the stadium, let's say, while there's 6 games going on, what are the protocols that we build? Like those are tough conversations to be able, like there's a lot of variables that you have to manage. So those are the types of things that we're trying to dive into now, to be able to kind of get some clarity on that and help staff. At the same time, Alice is out there. And so Alice is a tool that we use to be able to deal with violent critical incidents. So there's a critical incident, there's a violent critical incident. And so at the same time, we take that Alice language, we incorporate it into that crisis plan, and then we talk about what that looks like. And so now with Alice, kind of the nuts and boltsy type of questions are starting to come up. Like, you know, an example of a question, and I don't have an answer to this right now, and so I'm trying to work through my own brain, and there's some resources out there that I'm going to look into, but people ask the question, are we going to have ladders in every classroom, that if there was ever an incident, there would be a ladder that would go down from the second floor of a building that kids could climb down? So let's think about that. On one hand, do you think that, sure, that might make some sense. On the other hand, I don't know if in the middle of a violent critical incident that we want kids scaling down the side of the building. So let's talk to some professionals about these. These are some questions that we're going to talk about with our crisis planning teams. Right now, that to me sounds like that would be an opportunity where we would barricade into a classroom, right? And so I think what we need to be really clear about is Alice isn't just about the evacuation piece. There's other parts of Alice that we need to think about and train for, and really be precise with that language. The other question that comes up all the time around these types of things is that you'll see them on the news sometimes, and there's these door locking devices that people put in the classrooms, and they say that people can't get through this door if you put this wedge in or you put this lock in, and those don't meet fire code. And so trying to find if there's something out there that we could use that meets fire code, 100%. We're going to be involved with that. So we're in the process of researching that to find out, is there something, talking to the Maine State Fire Marshal, is there stuff out there that we can use? But the trick is that you have to be able to unlock it from both sides, but you can't have a key on this side. It has to be only done by manual on this side, and on the other side it has to be opened by a key. That's a pretty tough balancing act to be able to figure out. So we're working on those types of, those are the questions that are out there right now. So that's the crisis planning. The other 2 parts that go along with this is that tomorrow at 2 o'clock, we are having, I'm going to misuse the word, so forgive me, but I hope you understand the intent. We're going to have our first roundtable. I'm going to put that in parentheses. It's not going to be a necessarily of what do you do in this incident type of roundtable, but we're going to have both fire departments together. We're going to have both police departments together. And they're going to come in. We're going to sit down the five kind of entities and talk about how do we manage crises. Let's start to identify the people who are involved. Let's start to talk about kind of big picture. What are our goals by the end of the year? How often do we want to meet and have these conversations? Like for instance, South Berwick Police Department does an incredible job of whenever they bring a new police officer on duty, that they make sure they bring them in the schools a multiple of times so they're familiar with the buildings. Do we do that same thing with other areas? Like should we with the fire department, should we do that? Should we offer the buildings to be trained if the fire department needs to be here, or the police department needs to be here? Those are the kind of conversations that we're going to start tomorrow. And so creating an ongoing meeting, a collaborative meeting between the towns and the schools to be able to figure out how do we keep kids safe the best. And if there ever was a critical incident, how do we respond appropriately? So the big idea is that if we do have an incident, we're the incident commanders until we get outside, and then those are the professionals that are going to take over and dictate what we need to do. And so some people want some clarity to say, like, if there was an evacuation of Marshall Great Works School, where would we go? And the answer is, I don't know where you would go right now because I don't know what the incident is. Right? I don't know where it is. And so like those are the types of things that we need to be able to work through. And I don't mean to say like I don't know, like I couldn't find the answer, but give me more details. There's more to it than just, we're going to go to the same place every time, right? And I go back to, we practice fire drills, and 12 years ago-ish, we had the fire here at Marshwood High School, and we had kids that walked right through the smoke, because that's what we practiced, right? And so like I think we've got to kind of get back to like, let's think about, the idea is keeping everybody safe. Let's practice these contingencies, and so that will be the work that we're doing. The last thing I will share with you is that I reached out to both school resource officers, Ryan Mazer and Jason McLeod, and what we are going to do is a training for our administrative assistants, and so that's a pretty high pressure situation to be in. So just imagine that you're really in many ways the first line of defense. You're answering the phone 90% of the time, and so if there was ever a threat, if there was ever a suspicious phone call, if there was ever a a bomb threat, what do you do? How do you manage that? And so like, let's talk about that. Let's have our SROs come in and provide some training. And the other part is that we put these door buzzers in, but like, what do we need to look for? Like, what are things that they, what are, you know, where, if I were working as an administrative assistant, what would cause me pause? Where do I want to say, like, I need to get another situation here? So like, those are the trainings that we're gonna embark on, and hopefully that will happen, Tuesday of next week is the goal, so. Just a bunch of crisis-related things going on, but I just wanted to be able to share that with all of you. Are there any questions? The last thing, I just think it's important, you probably noticed it but didn't even realize you noticed it, but if you call any of the schools now, you get kind of this automated message saying that your phone call may be recorded. And so we have to do that legally, but that allows us to be able to record any incidents of people calling on the phone. And so that if there was ever a crisis incident, that we would be able to pull that and be able to save that as a layer to be able to do an investigation. So you noticed that small change. I think that happened about 6 weeks ago or so. But just so you're aware of that, you may not even notice. But questions? This is one of the big things that's on staff's minds. You know, so we talk about professional development. This is real. You know, this is, people are concerned, and it's really hard because, you know, there's just these incidents, and it creates more questions for staff to say, like, you know, what do we do? So as much as we can have these conversations ahead of time and make people, you know, as you know, Jessica used the word transparent earlier. That's the transparency of what we're doing.
Yep, that's great. Thank you.
Anything? Any questions on that? I'm sorry to be so long-winded about it. Just it's good, you know.
It's
Very
important.
good. Now, my favorite part of the night, Kimochis. So I'm going to have Heidi do a little.
I'm gonna come up here because this is like a show and tell kind of a thing. Can I use this microphone? Is that okay? So, one of the things, as you know, Nina and I spent a lot of time last year working with the counselors, and we shared some of that at the end of the year, and they really had done some work mapping out curriculum. But one of the things that came through kind of again and again is, we know that we're doing good things. We know we have lessons in place, but it doesn't feel like there's necessarily the kind of continuity we want, or we're not 100% sure that it's as research-based as we want it to be. We wish we had something to ground us. So that was in my mind. And when we went to ASCA, we were fortunate enough to have the opportunity to discover Kimochis. There's tons on their website. I printed one thing off for you guys that just really shows how Kimochis connect to the CASEL, the 5 competency areas in CASEL for social emotional learning. But John asked me to give you the 5-minute spiel. So I'm going to give you the 5-minute spiel. So the concept behind Kimochis is that there's 5 characters, and this is really for our pre-K to 5 kiddos. And the characters each represent like a kid you might have in your class, or even the way a kid might be on any particular day in your class. And so the kids get to know the characters, and then the instructors use the characters to help teach different lessons about social emotional skills that kids might need. And each of the characters has a beautiful storybook that goes along with them. There's a whole big curriculum, which I'm not going to get into. And then this is the bag of feelings. You're going to see some examples. But I'll just introduce you to the characters because it kind of gives you the flavor. So I'll start with this one. So this is Lovey Dove. And Lovey she's got some feelings in her little pouch. So she has friendly and kind. Lovey generally is the character that sends friendly signals. So she can wave at her friends. She keeps her friends under her wings. This is Turtle Dove, right? Turtle Dove is cute. And Lovey Dove is proud. She's proud of her friends when they do hard things. So those are kind of some of her characteristics. And then there's lessons that highlight different skills that are related to that. So that's Lovey. You can send them around if you want. They're very huggable. This is Cloud. So Cloud is generally pretty happy, floating around, but Cloud can be moody. And sometimes Cloud gets mad. So sometimes Cloud is happy, sometimes Cloud is mad. And Cloud can teach kids lots of lessons, but one of the primary lessons Cloud teaches is it's okay to be mad, but it's not okay to be mean. So a lot of Cloud's lessons are about, you know, sometimes I get mad, but I can't be mean to my friends, or if I am mean to my friends, then I have to recover from that. I have to figure out how to say I'm sorry or how to fix that situation. So that's Cloud. I'm leaving that one for last. That's my favorite. This is Hugtopus. So Hugtopus has some feelings associated with him, silly and excited. So Hugtopus is the kid who's in your bubble, who doesn't want to sit still, who is super excited about everything all the time, cracking jokes, falling out of their chair, right? That's Hugtopus. And Hugtopus is the life of the party, but sometimes Hugtopus gets disappointed. So he might be excited, definitely silly, but sometimes disappointed because maybe they get told to chill out a little too many times, or maybe their friends aren't picking up on their excited vibe. So like one of the primary lessons Hugtopus teaches is there's a time to be silly and a time to be serious, right? So that's just one little lesson. It's Hug. This is Cat. So Cat's a really strong leader. Cat's the one who knows how to do the group project, and she's pretty sure that she knows how to do it all by herself. She can be a little bossy, maybe a little type A, and sometimes people's feelings get hurt because she kind of bowls through and doesn't want to listen to her peers. So what Cat is about, her one feeling associated with Cat is frustration, because she gets frustrated if people don't want to do things her way. But the big lesson that Cat can teach kids is that everybody gets a redo, right? Like, if you need to learn to listen to your peers, and if you, maybe you were a little bossy or a little short, it's okay. You can get a redo. Let's try that again. Her story, I think, is my favorite story. It's Cat's Not So Perfect Sandcastle, and it's about how she's just building this perfect sandcastle on the beach, but she won't let anyone help her because they're not going to do it right. Then she ends up feeling kind of left out, and then she realizes that her friends went and built a sandcastle that maybe wasn't as fancy and perfect as her, but they were having fun and she wasn't. So there was a lesson there. So that was kind of cute. So look at him. And this is Bug. I think Bug's my favorite. Saved her for last. Actually, I think in the story, Bug is a male character, but either way, doesn't really matter. So Bug tends to be on the shy side. Maybe a little hesitant, maybe a little afraid to try new things. And so sometimes Bug can feel left out, and I should have been showing you, not only do they say the words, but they have the faces on the other side, right? So when you look at the feelings, it kind of helps kids start to recognize facial expressions that are associated with certain emotions. So Bug is shy and she can feel left out sometimes, but what we learn from Bug is that sometimes we have to take our brave and put it in front of our shy so that we can do new things or hard things. And when we do that, that's when our wings come out, right? And then we can fly. Cute. Right? So that's Bug.
So sweet.
So we bought enough of these kits for our school counselors and social workers and our special educators that work with our students who have some particularly challenging behaviors at times to have kits in their rooms. And we are going to be doing professional development this fall to get those folks up to speed on the program. And the goal is that this is both a tier 1 and it can be a tier 2 support as well. So our counselors, our vision is our counselors will be pushing into classrooms and using the characters to teach those tier 1 lessons to all kids. You know, it's okay to be mad, but you don't get to be mean. Like, that's a lesson we want all kids to get. And then our social workers and our counselors can also use it for tier 2 support for kids who need lessons on particular things. One of the things we liked about it is it's incredibly flexible. It's not a real prescriptive kind of curriculum that says you have to do these 42 lessons. It's the index in the curriculum book is actually searchable by content too. So like, let's say I'm a first grade teacher and I'm having some issues in my classroom with teasing. I can just go to teasing, and there's 3 or 4 lessons like these will really address teasing. And so the teacher or the counselor could pull those out. And they're all designed to be pretty quick, like 10 to 15 minute, like perfect for a morning meeting or a after recess, little gathering. And, our hope is that we roll it out this year that way, and then we see, in my mind, I feel like we might get to a place down the road where pre-K and kindergarten teachers maybe want these in their rooms, because they, the kids get to know the characters, they get to know the language. A lot of it's about communication and reading body language and tone, and that stuff's tricky, especially when kids necessarily haven't been around other kids in a long time as much as we would like. So we're excited. The teachers so far, the counselors so far are pretty excited. They're just getting familiar with it. We just delivered them yesterday to them.
So this really also is in line with our responsive classroom model in our morning meetings, and so it's a doable piece where our target is for a counselor to be in each classroom 8 to 10 times over the course of the year, carrying those lessons, and really the idea that this is good for all students, and then a student, if it becomes more particularly impactful with pre-K, and maybe that's a conversation that we can have down the road. But this is it's a concrete way with an applicable curriculum that meets a need where the counselors came to us and said, look, we talked about it with MTSS, sometimes these acronyms get to be overwhelming. Like, what do you mean by social emotional learning? What does it mean? And so let's break it down. Here's something simple that we can do that's going to make a big impact on kids and get us talking about things. The other part that Heidi has is a bag of emotions. And there's probably 15 or 20 different emotions. And so they share a lesson where there's like an emotional soup. And kids can pick the different emotions out and talk about what those emotions are. So they start to be able to identify their feelings and be able to, and again, maybe there's a couple of feelings that are in conflict with each other, and let's have a conversation like what that looks like. So something simple, but I think it'll be pretty impactful.
Yeah. So had you heard about this company beforehand, before you went to this summer workshop? This is like
I am a sucker. I just saw the stuffed animals.
If this stuff
But why did we think of this? You could have marketed this.
Well, interestingly though, Lisa had heard of it through her work. And so I was bummed she's not here tonight because she was excited. She and I talked about it a little bit. I can't remember when, but she had heard of them before.
Okay.
Very cool.
I feel
They
like
had
the
a
kids
one
could
of the-
use it
Do you want it?
all grades.
All
Oh my
grades.
gosh, I feel like you could bring that into great works last year with everything Nolan went through. Full house.
You want to talk about these?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm not going to say too much about these, but these are called emotional attachments.
Oh.
And this is going to be obviously there's one that says kind, and that obviously meets some of the things we've been talking about district-wide. And so my goal is that on Monday, when I roll this out to the district staff, this will be part of the conversation, is these emotional attachments
Nice.
that we want to recognize.
Are they each getting a bundle?
I think
So-
you.
Or you should have a,
So,
But maybe
I
you can have a
have-
parent volunteer make some.
Yeah.
They were giving these out at the conference.
Oh,
So,
cute.
so I have hopeful, brave, happy, kind, and grateful.
Nice.
But it's just
That's
a
so cute.
silly
So wait, the
little-
conference
it's a
was
reminder, you know?
everything, and this was just a booth?
That was a booth.
Oh, how fun that you found that.
Yeah.
And it really, there was a, Ned is the kind of the head of the company, but there was and I can't think of her name. but Ellen, who was a former educator, and we just started talking and like sharing the curriculum, and then the support that she's going to provide us. How do we translate this to district messaging, right? So it's great that we can say this is super for pre-K through grade 5, let's say, but like how do we carry this message across? And so she was just phenomenal. And so this is a relationship that we're really excited about. Again, it meets a real need for us, but I also think from a staffing standpoint, it takes a little bit of pressure off to feel like I've got to create something, whereas this is something concrete.
Yeah.
It's really a resource. It allows me to differentiate, to say, look, I have a classroom where these kids might be struggling, or I have a child who may be struggling, and then how do I manage that? There's also 3 other more specific Characters, there's one whose name's Hero, who's really, has a real kind of I'm gonna say the word temper, but explosive personality, but he wants to protect everybody. And so it's really about PTSD and be able to, so if I'm a therapist, this might be an opportunity to be able to reach a child through kind of the stuffed animal as well. So.
Nice.
Yeah,
And we bought those extra characters for our two
Perfect.
social workers at the elementary
Great.
level.
Yeah, fine. I'm glad
So
you
we're
guys
gonna
went.
grow into it for sure. Just
Cool.
to add to what John said in terms of the PD piece, like one of the things that I like is when I had a meeting, and they're in California, so we play the "What time is it there" game with them. But when I had a meeting with Ned, not only did we set up a training for our counselors and social workers who will be using the curriculum directly, at the same time we set up a training for our principals so that they understand what they need to do to lead the building to this adoption,
Nice.
Good.
which I think is important.
And how do do fight with the idea that it's okay to be Ned, but you can't be me?
Right.
Like that, like you
Right.
could say that to a
Right.
senior in high school.
Yeah,
and everything.
and myself.
I might say that's right.
Yeah, so.
You can change the literature.
Yeah,
Learn that.
so.
Can you, can we bring one of these to the next wellness committee
Yeah.
meeting on the 7th? It would be fun.
Sure,
Lisa will be
yeah.
there and
Yeah.
it'd be fun.
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
That's awesome.
And the last thing that I have under my report is that I received word yesterday that Carrie Fisk has resigned her position as a special education teacher at Marshwood High School. We hired Carrie back in June, and so she had some circumstances where she needed to resign, so I wanted to share that with the board tonight. We posted that position. Those are tough ones to fill, particularly at this point in the game, so we're gonna do the best that we can to find the best replacement, as quickly as we can. So, and that concludes, that might have been the longest report ever.
It was great. No, but it was content rich
So,
Yep.
and much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Under correspondence, we have notification from the Maine School Management Association of the annual fall conference, which is in late October. I've attended a couple of times in the past. The sessions are really worthwhile. There's a smorgasbord of sessions that you can attend. It's really useful stuff. I believe the district has the funds available to register board members who wish to attend. I think it's generally 2 days, and I want to say it's a Thursday and a Friday, but I'll have to go back and look.
Is this in person now?
They usually do both. They usually offer it
Yeah.
in person, but they also have like remote
Yeah.
sessions,
Okay.
where they tape sessions
Yeah.
that you have access to for a couple weeks.
One of
afterwards.
the things they learned during the pandemic was that it was a good thing to have remote sessions that were then available online
Right.
to view for some period of time afterwards. I think they're gonna continue that practice.
Okay.
So if you can't make it up there, but if you can, I'm thinking I will probably go. We can carpool if you want.
Can you go for just a day?
Yes.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Typically, that's typically what happens, because one of the days
Yeah.
is really a business meeting, for the MSMA and kind of the constituents, so.
Yeah, actually, it just occurred to me, since I'm on the MSMA board now, I actually have to go.
You might go to 2 days, so.
What am I saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you let us, our dates?
The 26th.
Yeah, 26th
Okay.
and 27th, I believe, are the 2 dates.
Oh,
No?
I only saw one date.
Yeah.
Should be a Thursday or Friday. let me
Yeah.
just check.
Maybe because the 27th is the business.
Oh,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So more on that, stay tuned.
Okay.
We can all
Okay.
carpool.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
That brings us to the report of the committees. Finance and Facilities had an abbreviated yet elongated meeting. We abbreviated in the financial sense, but an elongated facilities. I would love to ensure that we make this an annual practice at the end of the summer, that the board gets a chance to tour the schools and see that what we saw today, which was spectacular. We got a tour of all of the work that was done, the improvements on all 5 of the buildings. And I would invite those of you who are on the tour to speak, to just talk about the various things that we saw.
Worthwhile,
Yeah.
and it's just amazing how much our district is saving with all of the work that's being done, and it's, I mean, do you have anything else
Yeah,
to
I
say?
was just, it was eye-opening to see really how much from the paint to the boiler to the water, it's a lot goes behind the scenes that you would
Paving,
not.
lights,
Yes,
everything,
Yeah, that you take for granted, yep. So it was great.
Yeah, thank you for that tour. That
Yeah,
was
thank you.
really
It
good.
was great.
So the next meeting will be next month. Ed Policy will next meet at the end of September, and Wellness SEL will next meet at the beginning of September
Do we have a time for the SEL meeting?
6 o'clock.
It's usually 6, yep.
Okay, that concludes the report of the committees and brings us to new business. And we have a couple of items tonight. I will entertain a motion, please, on this first item with regard to the Pinkham Notch trip.
How do you word this? Is it supposed to be worded like this?
I
Request?
move to approve a request.
Yes, I think that's how you.
Yeah,
I'll
go
do
ahead.
it. I move to approve a request for Great Works School students to participate in a 3-day, 2-night trip to Pinkham Notch in the spring of 2023 for the following dates: April 26th through 28th, May 1st through 3rd, and May 3rd through 5th.
Sorry.
I'll-
Oh, go ahead.
We can both second it, right?
Go ahead.
That's
Okay.
awesome, I'll second
Kate,
it.
we gotta get your name into the minutes. So
Hooray!
Kate will get the second on that. I'm so excited about this.
Yes,
It's
very exciting.
long overdue.
Moving
Yes,
It's
it
so,
feels like, yeah.
so good to have it back.
It's great.
Any comments or questions, or should we get right to the unanimous shout of yes?
Yes.
All in favor?
Yay!
That's 5-0. Thank you. And a motion, please, with regard to this nomination of Brandon Williams.
I move to nominate Brandon Williams, first-year probationary mathematics teacher, grade 7, MA 10, 62,951, school year 2022 to 2023.
Second, Heather?
Heather, thank you. John?
So Brendan comes with some really diverse experience. He's worked in the Chase Home for Children. He's also been an academic tutor. He also has been for the last 7 years a 6th grade mathematics teacher at Rochester Middle School. And so we're really fortunate to be able to find someone to step into that position with a resignation that we had early in August. And so Brendan will step into the 7th grade community.
Great. Questions or comments? All in favor? That is 5-0. Thank you. That concludes new business. We have no building administrators checking because it's summer, and we don't do that during the summer. Anybody on the board have any last comments they want to make?
I guess I just wanted to say, this is my first year on the board, not in a totally COVID-heavy summer, where everything was really about what are the guidelines, blah, blah. So it was really just like kudos to you, John, and to everyone who, from hiring to building improvements to curriculum, professional development, like it just feels like so much was done over the summer that I think we take for granted that sort of happens behind the scenes. And it was just so nice, and it just feels like hopeful and exciting and energizing that all these good things happen. It's going to be good. Thank you.
Okay. If there's nothing further, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
That's you.
I motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Rebecca?
I'll second.
That was Kate. All in favor?